breaking into that coverage to let you know we're going racing again, live racing here at Brands Hatch. This is the first of the progression races. This is something new for this year. You probably already know the format, but if you just joined us, this is for the drivers that finish 13th and lower in the heats. And it means a chance for drivers who didn't do so well or didn't have the rub of the green to come back. One such driver, Scottish Championship front runner Mikey Gray, who's there. Mikey had a non-finish in his heat, so he's got the opportunity now, albeit from the back of the grid in the progression race. If he could get into the top 6, then he can make it into the semi-final. If he doesn't do so well in the semi-final, he can then go out in the last chance race, but there's every chance that Mikey can come through. I would say, because he's one of the front runners in the Scottish Championship, that he's going to be someone for Andy and Scott to follow in this race to see how much progression he can make. And that's why it's the progression race. So with that, let's hand you up over to Scott and Andy, who are up there in the comms box.
Thank you, Richard. Yep, here we go then. Last chance saloon for a number of these drivers now to try and make it into the semi-finals then. Top 6 finishers from these 2 progression races will go through into those semis, and we've got a real good mix of classic and historic cars with a few of the more modern machines out there that maybe had some problems, maybe went off or had mechanical issues in their heats earlier on, and are now looking to try and, as a last-ditch effort, get into the semi-finals. On the pole position then for the progression race 1, both of these progression races, by the way, sponsored by Ford Performance. Thank you very much to Ford Performance for jumping on board. Ford, of course, ending their involvement, actually, officially speaking, with national single-seater racing at the end of 2021, as the British Formula 4 Championship will look for a new engine supplier next season. But Formula Ford going stronger than it has been for quite some time, hence why we've got these 224 car grids just for the progression races. Philip Harris, though, on pole position with Daryl DeLeon-Taylor alongside. Leanne McShane and Dan Rennie-Larsen are on row 2, ahead of Robert Higgins and Rick Morris on the 3rd row. Those 6 then, if they finish there, would go through into the semi-finals, but I imagine we will get a little bit of chopping and changing from that grid order. Row number 4 then is the 127 of Sean Macklin alongside Chris Hodgson. Then it's Stuart Kestenbaum and Pat Blakeney. Pat Blakeney in the number 8 car is the group operations manager of the Thruxton circuit, and it's his first time competing at the festival for over a decade, so he would love to make it into that top 6 if he could. He'll have to do it from 10th on the grid. Row number 6 then for Laurie Hughes and Stephen Mahwini, with Alan Slater and James Colborne next. Then it's Daniel Mavyatov with Sean Hollenby alongside, ahead of Phil Atwood, Hayden Hardiman, Terry Walkingshaw and Henry Campbell. Then it's Simon Pruce and Matthew Sturmer with Ian Geary and Michael Gray at the back of the field. Scott, these progression races then, they've always kind of been a part of the festival, previously known as last chance races. The progression race, though, essentially does the same job. An awful lot of pressure on the shoulders of the drivers here. Is there anyone outside of that top 6 on the grid that you think might be likely to jump up there and earn a transfer spot?
In terms of the drivers that are up there, I mean, arguably most of the cars in the field are of the older variety, shall we say. I mean, I've been intrigued to see how Pat Blakeney gets on. Of course, he's in the former festival-winning 2015 champion car, which Wayne Boyd ran, the Van Diemen MS13. So that's a pretty handy machine. A couple of cars outside that might make 1 or 2 moves up the grid. Intrigued to see how the guy likes of Daniel Mavlyatov, the Russian, gets through. Michael Gray maybe from the back of the grid. He had a bit of an unfortunate race, just coming through shock now in car number 48. But he could well progress through and do well. What is more crucial, the fact, because it's a shorter race, it's 12-lap race, so you lose 2 laps compared to, well, just about. It's sort of, the same as you have in the heat. So you have the same amount of time as you had in the heat, but ultimately you've got less chances to get through. Obviously, you've got half the chances that you did to get through for an automatic progression spot. So, as I said earlier on, it'll either be drivers who can get through based on pure pace being a newer car. If some of the older ones don't, they'll have a chance in the historic final based on how they progress here. So they can't automatically get through to the final. Getting a good finishing spot here could help them out for the historic chances if they're looking to try and get success in that later on.
There was one car that headed back to the pit lane, I'm afraid. I think it may well have been Matthew Sturmer. I think it was the 3rd to last car in the queue, so he may be a non-starter. The red lights are out, though, and everyone else bursts into life. Good start made from pole position by Philip Harris. Not such a good one from Daryl DeLeon-Taylor. And here comes the black car of Leanne McShane. The black machine to the outside line, challenging for the lead, number 179. Can she get the advantage through paddock? The answer appears to be no. And actually, she's now under pressure for that second place as they climb up Halewood Hill and head into the tight right-hander at Druids. Almost a bit of contact there as they go into the right-hander at the top end of the circuit. They just about keep it clean. Rick Morris looks like he's lost a position or two maybe. The black and red number 3 car, he is down into, yes, 7th or 8th place. So he started 6th and has dropped out of a transfer spot. But as they make their way down the back straight then, a lively start there with Daryl DeLeon-Taylor taking the early advantage.
Yeah, excellent stuff for the leading cars. They make their way up through the complex of circuits and try and challenge around the outside. Goes Dan Rayner Larson, and now McShane with a good start as well. And also Daryl DeLeon-Taylor, of course, is in his first weekend racing Fords after he's been mainly doing radicals and fresh out of karting. So another young star getting into the mix there as they come up the pit straight for the first time. But cracking start so far for the leading couple of cars, and side by side, 3 deep back as they go up the inside goes Dan Rayner Larson, and Harris couldn't hold on to that. So I reckon it might be a progression race, but again, regardless of that, this could be the makings of a pretty cracking race.
I think you might be right then. So Larson then takes the lead away from Harris as they turn through the right-hander. Harris didn't get a good start, but did manage to actually retain the lead, which I hadn't spotted. It was Daryl DeLeon-Taylor who got the best of the starts, but comes across the line in 4th, 2 places lower than he started the race. So, yes, a bit of shuffling there, even within the first lap or so. It's Harris, now Larson from Harris, from McShane, DeLeon-Taylor, Hodgson and Higgins, the top 6. Rick Morris drops down to 7th then, and Pat Blakeney from 10th on the grid up to 8th. So Blakeney is marching towards those transfer spots. He is in a much newer car, but of course hasn't raced Formula Ford for quite some time, so he's going to be getting quicker, you'd imagine, with almost every lap that he completes. Out of Clark Curve we come then for the second time of 12, and out along the start-finish straight towards Paddock Hill Bend again. Anyone going to make a move on the brakes for second place? We could see a change. DeLeon-Taylor goes up the inside of Harris, a little bit too far back though to make that one work, and that might now delay him on the exit, and it gives Hodgson the chance to get up the inside. Then here comes Hodgson going for it. Chris Hodgson started 8th on the grid and takes the number 17 car up into 3rd place. That is a brilliant effort, and actually immediately goes on the attack for second, goes up the inside of Philip Harris at Graham Hill Bend, and second place now belongs to Chris Hodgson. Brilliant driving that, 2 places in 2 corners, and might even have the pace now to set off after the race leader Dan Rennie Larson. It's Larson then that leads the way. Hodgson in second, down to 3rd for the pole sitter Harris, although he's back up the inside at Clearways, and the 81 machine clips the curb. Can he keep the nose on the inside? No, he can't, and they come out through Clark Curve as they were. You can see the lead there for the yellow machine of Dan Rennie Larson, trying to break that toe as the battle pack behind are really starting to trip over each other. Up to Paddock they go, into the right-hander, to the outside line there, an attempted overtake for DeLeon-Taylor on Harris. Of course, as long as they're in the top 6, they get into that semi-final. The further up they finish this race, though, the further up they will start in the semi. It only makes the difference of a position or so, but well worth doing. In fact, every position you gain within that top 6 in this race puts you 1 row further forward on the semi-final grid. So it is worth going for second if you're sitting in 3rd, for example, or first if you're sitting in 2nd, which is exactly the case for Chris Hodgson, who has got an absolute fire lit under him now. Not literally, thankfully, but he is chasing after the leader, Dan Rennie Larson. I think he's going to be right with him as they come through at the end of this lap, through Clearways, through Clark Curve. That looks like it might be Pat Blakeney on the inside of Rick Morris, actually. I think it is for 7th place. So Blakeney is going to go through in the blue and red car. Rick Morris fading a little now as the leaders head towards Paddock Hill Bend. So exciting stuff this then. The next target for Blakeney is going to be Gray, I think, isn't it? Number 48, just ahead. In fact, forgive me, I've correct myself there. Actually, it was Gray that had got himself ahead of Morris and Blakeney on that lap. I think there's been a bit of shuffling there because Blakeney has now got himself up ahead of Rick Morris, but he hadn't a lap ago. Through the left-hander then, Gray in behind the Higgins car, so it's Higgins 960, then it's Gray, then it's Morris, then it's Blakeney, and there, the 3rd position, DeLeon-Taylor has now got himself up ahead of Philip Harris, so DeLeon-Taylor into P3, Morris down to 4th, still Dan Rennie Larson though is holding on to the lead. Hodgson's caught him but hasn't yet been able to find a way through. He doesn't seem to be getting off Clearways quite quickly enough to actually make a move up into Paddock Hill Bend. Through they go. There is the 5 to 6 then, and that has now changed. Gray got himself ahead of Higgins, so Gray into P6. That knocked Higgins out of the festival temporarily. Let's wait and see whether or not he can fight back. A much older car, of course. Higgins' car is the Macon MR7. It's a 2010 spec Ray that Gray has just gone past him in, probably about, getting on for 50 years difference, the age between those two cars. And remarkable, actually, that Higgins is even keeping pace with these. Now, side by side for the race lead, and this is Hodgson's opportunity. A better exit from Graham Hill Bend, puts him on the inside for Surtees, but Larson hangs cover around the outside. Wheel to wheel, terrific racing between the two of them. And, well, I was about to say that Larson was going to give him that because it's not worth taking the risk of ending up having contact and going off the road, but I don't think Dan Rennie-Larsen cares, really. For many of these drivers, this is their one opportunity to win a race this weekend. They're not going to go down without a fight, but now Larson is slow across the start-finish line, and through will go into the lead of the race Chris Hodgson from 8th on the grid. Rennie-Larsen is very good on the brakes, but that car is not as aerodynamic, I don't think, as the cars around, and is struggling in a straight line. He's now got delay on Taylor going to the outside into Druids. That didn't work, and actually leaves the door open invitingly for Harris behind him. Down the hill, Leanne McShane there defending from Gray. So these are your top 6 together now. Delay on Taylor into second ahead of Dan Rennie-Larsen, who is now starting to slip backwards. He's under a lot of pressure from Philip Harris, who goes to the inside down the Cooper straight. Through the left hand, McShane losing out there. Yet into 5th position now goes the Gray car, so number 48 into 5th spot now. Having started an awfully long way down the order. Well, Scott Woodward has been a very, very frantic opening now 7 laps of the race. It is a new race leader now in the shape of Chris Hodgson, with delay on Taylor second and Dan Rennie-Larsen fighting hard to hold on to a podium. Yeah, mega stuff. And as I say, Michael Gray was one of the drivers I was going to tip, and look at him, he's up to 4th already. Of course, he's the son of Stuart Gray, one of the main men who looks after Knockhill Racing Circuit, so he's been racing in the Scottish Formula 4 Championship, and again, just proves that if you've got the pace to do it and the right car underneath you, you can really fly. And so there's every chance with the time he's got. He's lap 8 to 12 at the moment, and they make their way up onto Graham Hill Bend now. It's onto the rump.
And he's now starting to
onto the back straight, onto the left-hand side, and now back towards the complex. He's catching Dan Rennie-Larsen, who's just spotted something there, Andy. Yeah, Dan Rennie-Larsen's rear bodywork's coming loose, isn't it? I think the engine cover is coming loose on that yellow car, which would explain why he's so down on straight line speed. You'll see the way now that Michael Gray, admittedly in a much newer car, is able to drive straight past him, but even some of the similarly aged machinery has been going several miles an hour quicker down the straights than the yellow car. So Dan Rennie-Larsen in trouble. He loses that 3rd place to Michael Gray, who, remember, started 24th and last on the grid after that problem that he had in the heat earlier on, and now he's into a podium place in the progression race here, sponsored by Ford Performance. The race leader, I remind you, is Chris Hodgson, still only half a second though ahead of Daryl DeLay on Taylor. Remember, Hodgson started the race 8th, but DeLay on Taylor was on the front row, so we always knew he would have race winning pace. There they go through the screen. Then it's the blue car of Gray, then it's the yellow car of Larson, with Harris the black and white behind, and then the all black of Leanne McShane, who's 1.4 seconds clear of Rick Morris. So for the final progression spot, it is looking pretty good for Leanne, unless of course she starts getting delayed by the battles ahead of her. Yeah, so still holding on to that crucial final transfer spot, because these 6 have got quite a clear advantage, and Rick Morris looks as though, unless by some good fortune towards the end of this race, he might not make it through automatically into the main festival, but he will still be someone to look out for in the historic part of the festival. But this Chris Hodgson doing a grand job, particularly as he's been quite a prominent driver in his newer chassis amongst the northern Formula Ford ranks in the races that he's done, and certainly someone who we're pleased to have at the festival. He's in one of the older chassis in the mix, one of the older Reynards. But Daryl DeLay on Taylor also showing his prowess as well. Again, remember, 16 years old. Literally, I think it's his first ever race weekend in the Formula Ford, and proving that those young karting graduates that come out now these days, they're pretty handy behind the wheel, although it's been giving a really good go. But I tell you what, to come on to the penultimate lap of the race, there is every chance Michael Gray from the back of the grid could win this. They're going to go 3 wide into paddock, I think, very nearly, although late on the brakes, Hodgson manages to fend them off. But you're right, Gray is now challenging delay on Taylor, which takes the pressure a little bit off the race leader. Hodgson will be looking in his mirrors and hoping that delay on Taylor can fend Michael Gray off for a bit longer. It doesn't happen though. Gray goes through at Druids and now claims 2nd position, and that now gives him just over a lap and a half to try and catch the last few car lengths to the leader and then find a way through. There's no doubt about it, Michael Gray is the fastest man in this race. His fastest lap is a 51.7. That is 8/10 faster than anything race leader Chris Hodgson has managed to do, and he's going to give himself 1 lap to try and pass him, and out of clearways through Clark Curve. The newer Ray should have an advantage in a straight line, and Michael Gray has the slipstream as well, but you can bet that Chris Hodgson is going to defend the inside line, as he's every right to do. Last lap ball goes out.
out side by side for the race lead then in our first progression race of the festival, and super late on the brakes is Chris Hodgson, gets into Paddock Hill Bend first. Watch for the switchback though, Michael Gray has more speed off the corner and they head up the hill. He's got the inside line, there's a slower car in front, that's Terry Walkingshaw. Off has gone Dan Rennie Larson though from 4th place. Dan Rennie Larson has thrown away a semi-final spot with an off at Paddock Hill Bend on the final lap of the race. Michael Gray gets the lead, but drama behind, Scott.
Yeah, unfortunately for Dan Rennie Larson, and again, he will be someone who potentially could be in the Superclass because the car is also pulled off as well, and you can't overtake in that section, so therefore Darrell de Leon Taylor can't make the move because they have to wait to getting out of the yellow flags to make it work. But I have to say, genuinely, it's not often you say this, but this is genuinely one of the best festival wet drives I've seen for quite a while, Andy.
Yeah, Michael Gray across the start-finish line wins the Formula Ford Festival Progression Race 1, sponsored by Ford Performance, with Chris Hodgson in second place, and Darrell de Leon Taylor may be robbed of an opportunity there to take second place on the final corner. Leanne McShane is 4th, Rick Morris is 5th, and Pat Blakeney's 6th, because De Leon Taylor has got a penalty. De Leon Taylor has been given a 5-second penalty. I know not why. It will be one of two things, either an out of position or a jump start, or track limits. We didn't get any notification he was being warned about track limits, but as the conditions get drier, drivers do like to use a bit more runoff area than they should be now that those curbs have a bit more grip in them. So the number 114 car that did finish on the podium in that race will unfortunately finish 7th and miss out on a promotion spot, and that puts Pat Blakeney into 6th position. So lots of drama, an awful lot to unpack after that race, but what a drive that was from Michael Gray from 24th, let's make that 23rd on the grid because there was one non-starter, but still 23rd on the grid to snatch the lead going on to the final lap and take the victory by nearly 2 seconds. Very, very impressive indeed.